Excellencies, distinguished delegates, I bring to you warm greetings from His Majesty the Druk Gyalpo. Excellencies, 53 years ago, on the 21st of September 1971, a small Himalayan kingdom was admitted to the United Nations. On that day, after centuries of self-imposed isolation, Bhutan became the 128th member of the United Nations. It was a defining moment for us. When a small, poor, landlocked country nestled in the world's highest mountain joined the global community of nations. That same year, the United Nations created the least developed country category to provide targeted support to the world's poorest nations. Bhutan was among the first to be admitted in that list. Back then, our economy was primarily agrarian, first to be operating largely on a barter system. Our per capita GDP income stood at just $215. Life expectancy was barely 40 years. Infant mortality was tragically high at 142 deaths for every 1,000 live births. And our literacy rate was woefully low. We had only, in fact, less than 300 students in the few scattered schools that had been established to provide modern education. Today, I stand before you with a story of transformation and progress. Our per capita GDP has risen to more than $3,500. Life expectancy has increased to 70 years. Infant mortality has plummeted to 15 deaths per 1,000 live births. And our literacy rate, it has climbed to 71%, with youth literacy skyrocketing to 99%. I am pleased to report to this august assembly that because of our all-round progress, last December, 52 years after joining the United Nations, Bhutan graduated from the LDC category. To achieve this achievement did not come easily. It was a journey marked by hard work, perseverance, and sacrifice. But we were not alone. We had the support of many friends who accompanied us on this important journey. I take this opportunity to extend our deep gratitude to the United Nations and its specialized agencies. I would also like to thank all our development partners, including Japan, the European Union, the World Bank, and the Asian Development Bank for their unwavering support. But most importantly, I would like to reserve our deepest thanks to India, our closest friend and neighbor. They have been with us from the very beginning of our development journey and have remained steadfast in their support and friendship. Excellencies, graduating from the LDC category is a significant milestone. But what truly matters is that we did it in our own terms. Under the leadership of our enlightened monarchs, Bhutan has pursued a development path grounded in the philosophy of gross national happiness. This approach places the happiness and well-being of our people at the center of our development agenda. Thanks to gross national happiness, our economy, while it is still small, is sustainable and inclusive. Healthcare and education are free for all. Our unique culture not only survives, but thrives. More than 72% of our land is under forest cover, and we are recognized as a biodiversity hotspot and a carbon-negative country. Our democracy, a gift from our king, has been embraced by a
72%
reluctant
of our
population.
land is under forest cover.
And Excellencies, having graduated from the LDC category, it is now our responsibility to ensure that we sustain our hard-earned progress and that under no circumstances should we ever backslide. As we chart a new course for the future, we are faced with new challenges, particularly those arising from our weak economy. Foremost among them is youth unemployment. To address these challenges, we must strengthen our economy. We must provide our youth with meaningful opportunities to grow and to prosper. We must embrace a new development paradigm. In this context, I am pleased to report that His Majesty the King has announced the establishment of the Gaelifu Mindfulness City. The Gaelifu Mindfulness City is a transformative vision for future urban spaces, a blueprint for living mindfully and sustainably. Spanning 2,600 square kilometers of pristine forests and fertile farmlands, it will enable human innovation and natural ecosystems to thrive together while fostering human well-being, environmental sustainability, and mindful living. We invite thought leaders, innovators, and investors to join us in building this groundbreaking city, contributing to a model of peace, harmony, and progress that others can follow. Excellencies, Bhutan's story is one of hope, but it is also a call to action. More than 50 years have passed, and only 7 nations have graduated from the LDC category, leaving 46 countries still in need. This is unacceptable. The international community must intensify its efforts to ensure that no nation is left behind, that all LDC countries achieve graduation. To accomplish this, we must address poverty, inequality, and vulnerability with a renewed sense of urgency. The Pact for the Future, which we adopted collectively at the Summit of the Future, provides us with a roadmap to transform the lives of the world's most vulnerable. However, transforming the future requires that we also transform institutions shaping it. The United Nations must evolve to meet the realities of today's world. The Security Council as it stands is a relic of the past. We need a council that reflects the current geopolitical, economic landscape, and social realities. Bhutan has long advocated for the reform of the Security Council to make it more representative and effective. For this, India, with its significant economic growth and population and leadership of the Global South, deserves a permanent seat at the Security Council. Similarly, Japan, a leading donor and peace builder, warrants permanent membership. Excellencies, in conclusion, let me reiterate our deep gratitude for the support we have received on Bhutan's journey to LDC graduation. Now we are committed to sustaining this progress, but we will need your continued support. In this regard, we invite your support and investment in initiatives like the Gaelifu Mindfulness City. However, as we celebrate Bhutan's progress, we must also intensify our efforts to support other LDCs, ensuring that they too can achieve graduation. In this regard, the role of the United Nations is more critical than ever, reinforcing the imperative for multilateralism in addressing the global challenges we face. As we look to the future, I have the honor to close by repeating a profound message from His Majesty, our beloved King. I first did so 7 years ago. And I repeat, no nation today can stand alone in achievement. Time is slowly telling us that there can be no lasting individual success without success as a community. And there cannot be lasting national progress and success if it does not fit into a future of global peace, harmony, and equality. The world must progress together or fail together. Thank you, and Tashidile.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister of the Kingdom of Bhutan. The Assembly will now hear an address by His Excellency Xavier Espot Zamora, Head of the Government of the Principality of Andorra. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Señor Presidente,
Mr. President, Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, allow me to begin by extending my congratulations to His Excellency Mr. Philemon Yang on his election as President of the 79th General Assembly. I would like to thank you, President, for having chosen unity in diversity, sustainable development and human dignity everywhere for everyone as the theme. Andorra could not be any more in agreement than we are with this goal, which we fully support, because my country is tangible, real proof that people are able to live together peacefully for more than 800 years. Indeed, thanks to our understanding and mutual respect shown by our inhabitants, our country has never had a war and we've never had an army. Andorra has always been an oasis of peace, tolerance and cohabitation, including during the most troubled times of the old continent. I'd also particularly like to thank the Secretary General, Mr. Antonio Guterres, for his perseverance, for always preferring the path of conciliation and for his message in favor of international law and against climate change. I would also like to stress the impetus that the Secretary General has given to the Summit of the Future, which gave rise to the Pact for the Future that my country has signed. The goal of this is to strengthen the multilateral system, to adopt concrete measures to address new challenges and establish a roadmap to address existential risks to humanity, civilization, and most people on Earth. Classical authors, they are the basis of Western culture. They tell us, and I use the present tense because they never die, they say that all speech is vain and empty unless it be accompanied by action. What is important are the things that we do throughout our lives. All civilizations are born in specific circumstances, and very often they go down in history thanks to their conquests. But what is the conquest of this civilization? What is its vocation? And what is the heritage that it will leave behind? Or rather, what is the conquest, vocation and heritage that we want this civilization to leave to future generations? Ladies and gentlemen, today in the West we very often forget that democracy goes over and above simply putting your ballot in the box every 4 or 5 years. The very substance of the concept of democracy is the values involved: dignity, tolerance, equality, freedom, respect for people and nations. These values are human rights, the rights that this General Assembly has decided to protect 76 years ago by adopting the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. It would seem that the spirit in which this declaration was forged, a symbol of peace and dignity following 2 devastating world wars, is fading little by little. The forward march of extremist political positions is a reaction in the light of something that is viewed as a threat, an order that's viewed as a threat. The feeling that a recent past has been lost and it's better than the present, that has invaded current generations. And heightened by the idea that climate change will worsen living conditions and that globalization and migration flows will dilute and depersonalize our societies, and that children and young people today will live less well than their parents did. We find ourselves at a key moment in history where the debate cannot be hidden behind rhetorical language to avoid this situation. We will soon be celebrating the 80th anniversary of the United Nations, and this organization must continue to be the cornerstone of our world, to be an organization where states and the nations that make it up are moving in the same direction with the same goal to respond effectively to the great challenges of our times in order to leave future generations a heritage which promises hope. Ladies and gentlemen, we have never had so many tools to bring about cooperation and dialogue. In the light of a very complex reality, but convinced as we are of the equality between nations, we must ensure the implementation of the Charter of the United Nations, strengthened by the pillars of the defense of human rights as well as the defense of international humanitarian law. Those are the things, and those alone, that must govern relations between states. The serious situations in Ukraine, Gaza, Lebanon and Sudan and other regions where we see conflicts that have become permanent, particularly in the region of the Sahel. We cannot remain indifferent to these. We must urgently become mobilized to achieve the most noble goal of politics, peace. We must come together and find solutions to conflicts without violence or recourse to military resources. We would call upon all parties to work for peace and that they respect international humanitarian law and that they obey it. Because nothing can justify the attacks suffered by civilian populations, nothing can justify the attacks against hospitals and schools, and nothing can justify using hunger as a strategy of war. Nothing can justify such irrational behavior. Children are the main victims of this. Children and young people take pride of place in on the international agenda of Andorra because we firmly believe that they are the present and the future of humanity, which means that all actions to benefit them become strategic actions for the development of a country, of any country. This is why, since its creation, we have supported the Office of the Special Representative of the Secretary-General for Children and Armed Conflict, and more recently the study on the impact of climate change on children and armed conflict. When I asked you at the beginning of my statement what conquest, what vocation and what heritage did we want to leave behind, there can be no doubt a world in peace for our children and our young people, a world that provides opportunities to each and every one of them. This is the great responsibility which we bear, to ensure that future generations do not have a life worse than ours, but rather that they are fully able to participate in progress, as we have agreed in recent days in the Summit of the Future. Excellencies, Andorra joined the United Nations in 1993. The international context at the time was full of hope, the reunification of Europe after the Cold War. We decided to become a member of the United Nations with the conviction that we wanted to be a society open to the world, which shares with the international community its opportunities and its challenges. We believe that the problems of the world are also our problems, and it is for that reason that we wanted and want to participate in solving them. 3 decades have gone by since then, and although we see the Cold War re-emerging, and whilst in the Middle East we see increasing tensions, and whilst extremism is advancing and is of concern, Andorra fully believes in its international commitments and multilateralism. We believe that these are the best and the only instruments to resolve the current crisis. But Andorra also attaches particular importance to regional cooperation, particularly that deployed by the European Union, with which Andorra is negotiating an association agreement, which will mean that we will be able progressively and in a structured way to enter the European single market, to diversify our economy and participate in building a geographic, economic and political reality. that of the European Union with a privileged status of associated state. Whether it be obligations that we undertake when joining an international organization or by signing an international treaty, Andorra acts to fully respect its commitments. And as small as my country might appear to major states, that in no way takes away from our ambitious objectives. And this is always essential, as is our multilateralism, the climate emergency, gender equality, the digital transition, and cultural diversity. On that last point, Andorra is very proud to have co-facilitated for one further year the resolution on multilingualism at the United Nations together with Guatemala. Ladies and gentlemen, climate change is undoubtedly a global threat, but it's also true that it affects certain countries more than others. This is the case for coastal regions where the sea level is increasing and mountainous regions where the ecosystem has become more vulnerable. This is the case for Andorra. The effects of climate change risk changing the way of life of its inhabitants and even the economy of the country. And it's for this reason that we have made the fight against climate change one of our main goals, internationally as well as nationally. Since the ratification of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change in 2011, Andorra has met its communication obligations by respecting the principles of transparency, coherence, comparability, exhaustivity, and accuracy, and we have even implemented certain things ahead of time with regard to the convention. In 2015, Andorra was one of the first to join the Framework Convention and produce our NDC, Nationally Determined Contribution. Andorra was one of the first to join the Framework Convention and 2022, and we plan to achieve climate neutrality by 2050. In 2023, Andorra was the first state to present its biannual report on transparency, which showed once again the importance that we attach to our commitment to fight against climate change. Nationally, we have also undertaken great efforts to implement a new energy policy to progressively increase the national production of renewable energy and replace heat production systems with less polluting systems. This policy in favour of renewable energy was led by the public sector with the implementation of very ambitious legislation and using significant aid and action plans. However, do you know that all of these efforts will be in vain if other countries do not do the same thing? If we're not all moving in the same direction, because fighting climate change is the most urgent global challenge that we have. The broadest challenge which requires the highest possible level of cooperation, collaboration, generosity and respect. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at the midway point in achieving the Sustainable Development Goals of the 2030 Agenda, and we are going to soon be in the final home stretch. What has been achieved is already deceiving, bearing in mind that behind the results are millions of people who are suffering the consequences. The Sustainable Development Goals are certainly very ambitious, but if we decide to implement them with persistence, creativity and innovation, then we can bring about real Sustainable Development Goals are certainly very ambitious, but if we decide to gender equality and reality, sustainability and norm, the protection of children, then we can bring about real change by ensuring that divides are overcome and making gender equality a reality, sustainability a norm, the protection of children, wrote that the future principle, and by ensuring that divides are overcome once and for all. The poet and novelist of France, Louis Aragon, wrote that the future of men is women. That was in 1963 on the
plena entre dones i homes, i va ser una autèntica declaració d'amor i d'admiració cap a la seva dona, cap a la seva musa. encara ens queda un llarg recorregut per fer entendre a una part del món totes i tots nosaltres. I com a representants dels nostres països respectius tenim l'obligació moral i política de promoure aquesta transformació. El nostre compromís ha de ser transformar la igualtat de gènere d'una aspiració llunyana a una realitat concreta en les nostres societats. Només així garantirem un futur millor per a les generacions que vindran. Excel·lències, l'accés a la informació està redefinint els paradigmes del creixement i del desenvolupament.
Development Goals 9, 16 and 17, with the creation of an ethical and legal framework that preserves digital rights, protecting private life and data security, and ensuring free access to digital information, because we want
coneixement i accés a la dimensió digital i evitar així, com deia, situacions de desigualtat. Senyores i senyors, el Principat d'Andorra es va comprometre amb aquesta organització dels pobles i per als pobles fa més de 30 anys, amb l'esperança que un món millor és possible i amb el convenciment que el meu país, el Principat d'Andorra, des de la nostra petita dimensió, també podem fer coses grans i exemplars. Ens vam presentar al món com un país amb una llarga història, que finalment havia trobat el seu lloc en la comunitat internacional, un país que s'obria al món amb esperit constructiu i tarannà pacífic i dialogant a favor de l'entesa i l'harmonia entre els pobles. I aquests valors són els que ens continuen guiant en els àmbits nacional i internacional. Cal que entre tots els pobles impulsem una nova cultura de la pau, basada en l'abolició de la guerra i en el compromís d'arribar a acords pacífics que solucionin els conflictes. Cal que el desenvolupament arribi a tots els racons del planeta, que respectin els drets fonamentals i que el nou univers digital estigui a mans del coneixement. Iniciava aquesta intervenció citant els clàssics i permeteu-me que acabi de la mateixa manera. Hi ha una obra fundadora de la literatura grega antiga i que ha impregnat des d'ençà la cultura occidental, de la qual resulta molt difícil oblidar-se. Parla de la conquesta i de la destrucció, de la cobdícia, de l'odi i de la compassió i de l'amor i la mort. La Ilíada d'Homer és, en certa manera, un mirall.
In this video, I'll show you how to make Google Chrome your default browser in Windows 11. If you
obeeix a les arbitrarietats dels déus,
to add
en el
a
fons,
capture.
també evidencia que les relacions humanes poden ser, si ho volem, profundament humanes en el millor sentit de la paraula. I aquest, penso jo, és el missatge que hem de fer nostre encara avui aquí. Hem de mantenir la fe en la humanitat i aspirar a construir entre totes i tots un món en pau i més just, solidari i inclusiu. Moltes gràcies.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the head of government of the Principality of Andorra. The Assembly will now hear an address by His Excellency Muhammad Yunus, Chief Advisor of the Interim Government of the People's Republic of Bangladesh. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
A pride of place in the international.
নির্বাচিত হওয়ায় প্রথমেই আপনাকে আন্তরিক অভিনন্দন জানাচ্ছি। আমি আশ্বস্ত করছি যে আপনার এই দায়িত্ব পালনকালে বাংলাদেশ প্রতিনিধি দল আপনাকে পূর্ণাঙ্গ সহযোগিতা প্রদান করবে। জাতিসংঘের ম্যান্ডেটকে সমুন্নত রেখে বৈশ্বিক সংকটসমূহ নিরসনে মহাসচিব অ্যান্টোনিও গুতেরেসের দৃঢ় প্রতিজ্ঞ সাফল্যমণ্ডিত নেতৃত্বের জন্য তাকেও জানাই আন্তরিক সাধুবাদ। সামিট অব দ্য ফিউচার আয়োজনে আমি মহাসচিবের দূরদর্শী ভূমিকার বিশেষ প্রশংসা করছি। সম্মেলনে যে প্যাক্ট ফর দ্য ফিউচার অ্যান্ড ডিক্লারেশন অন ফিউচার জেনারেশনস সর্বসম্মতভাবে গৃহীত হয়েছে, তা এজেন্ডা 2030 পরবর্তী বৈশ্বিক উন্নয়ন কর্মপন্থা নির্ধারণে বিশেষ সহায়ক হবে বলে আমি মনে করি। বাংলাদেশ বিশ্বাস করে যে এই সম্মেলনের অর্জন বৈশ্বিক সমৃদ্ধি অর্জনের জন্য আমাদের সবার অভিপ্রায় ও সহযোগিতা কাঠামো প্রণয়নে দিক নির্দেশক হিসেবে কাজ করবে। এই জুলাই আগস্ট মাসে বাংলাদেশে যে যুগান্তকারী পরিবর্তন সংঘটিত হয়েছে তার প্রেক্ষিতেই আজ আমি বিশ্ব সম্প্রদায়ের এই মহান সংসদে উপস্থিত হতে পেরেছি। আমাদের গণমানুষের, বিশেষ করে তরুণ সমাজের অফুরন্ত শক্তি আমাদের বিদ্যমান রাষ্ট্র কাঠামো ও প্রাতিষ্ঠানিক আয়োজনগুলো আমূল রূপান্তরের এক নতুন সম্ভাবনার দ্বার উন্মোচন করেছে। আমাদের ছাত্র ও যুব সমাজের আন্দোলন প্রথম দিকে মূলত ছিল বৈষম্য বিরোধী আন্দোলন, পর্যায়ক্রমে তা গণ আন্দোলনের রূপ নিয়েছে। এরপর সারা পৃথিবী অবাক বিস্ময়ে দেখেছে কিভাবে সমগ্র বাংলাদেশের মানুষ একনায়কতন্ত্র, নিপীড়ন, বৈষম্য, অবিচার ও দুর্নীতির বিরুদ্ধে রাজপথ ও সামাজিক যোগাযোগের মাধ্যমে দৃঢ়ভাবে রুখে দাঁড়িয়েছিল। আমাদের ছাত্র জনতা তাদের অদম্য সংকল্প ও প্রত্যয়ের মাধ্যমে একটি স্বৈরাচারী ও অগণতান্ত্রিক শাসন ব্যবস্থা থেকে আমাদের মুক্তি এনে দিয়েছে। তাদের এই সংকল্পের মধ্যেই আমাদের দেশের ভবিষ্যৎ নিহিত। যা এই দেশকে বিশ্ব সম্প্রদায়ের মাঝে একটি দায়িত্বশীল জাতির মর্যাদায় উন্নত করবে বলে আমি বিশ্বাস করি। এই গণ আন্দোলন রাজনৈতিক অধিকার ও উন্নয়নের সুবিধাবঞ্চিত বাংলাদেশের আপামর জনসাধারণকে ঐক্যবদ্ধ করেছে। বাংলাদেশের মানুষ উন্নয়ন কর্মকাণ্ডকে অন্তর্ভুক্তি